got some red balls there, really, or balloons. I'm really excited to see what they are. But I'm really thrilled today to introduce our lunch keynote speaker, the leadership expert, Joel Hilchey. He has spent the last 13 years speaking at conferences and events and sharing ideas on education, creativity, and success. We invited Joel today to present his keynote presentation, Imagine a Better Way. Joel studied engineering physics at McMaster University, and he earned his master's degree in environmental engineering at the University of Toronto. He now also teaches at McMaster and has written 2 books. In fact, he's giving everybody the book that he wrote, so on your way out after the session, we will have the books on both doors. Please pick one up, and after that you head for lunch. But thank you, Joel. This is a very generous contribution from you. He is the chair of the board of the world-renowned Hamilton Children's Choir, and he is the founder of the Beanstalk Project, which delivers career skills workshops in schools across Ontario and beyond. A man of many talents, he is an amateur magician, a barbershop quartet singer. Are you going to sing for us today? A juggler. In fact, he's the only person I know who has been asked to give a command performance at airport security, juggling loaded rat traps. So we're going to have a lot of fun with this one. I know you're going to have a lot of fun, so please join me in giving a warm and welcome to Joel.
Here. You know what I love about a day like today is that it's always a bit of a surprise. You know, you might have known why you showed up, but you don't necessarily know what you're going to find. You never know what might happen. You never know what somebody might say that might spark your imagination, or I don't know, in some way like light a fire or something. Light a fire. Light a fire. It's real fire. I'll be honest with you. Airport security does not think that trick is funny. Apparently neither do some of you. Okay. So, I've got a question for you. How many people believe that they work for an innovative organization? Not that many, actually. How many people believe that they themselves are creative? That's good. You've come to the project management forum on innovation. This is good. But it's always amazing to me, if you go back, ask your colleagues, it's always amazing to me how few people deep down believe they're creative. Everybody knows creativity is important. So why is making change so hard? Why do we get so stuck in our ways? I mean, in most organizations, even suggesting something new gets pushed back from every direction. Yeah? Right, that'll never work, it's too risky, we've tried that before. Even me, I consider myself to be an open-minded kind of a guy. So why do I get in a fight with my wife when she suggests an alternate way of loading the dishwasher? It seems silly to fight over something so simple. Right? A change that would take hardly any effort at all. But still, I feel the resistance. And when leaders try to manage change, it just seems to create more resistance. Now people not only fight or argue with what you're doing, but how you're doing it as well. I guess I feel like people want change, or they say they want change. People say they want change, but then they actually don't want to do it. Right? They know they hate bureaucracy, but they'll fight against restructuring. I think we need a different approach to this. People get cynical. Right? At some point, each new rollout seems like just another pointless scheme for management. Yeah? Leaders are overwhelmed, constantly asked to do more with less. Key players are overworked. Everyone's juggling way too many priorities. Change, frankly, feels impossible. And yet, some organizations figure out how to do it. Some companies are consistently more innovative year after year than the rest. How? Why? Some companies have figured out, some organizations have figured out how to reinvent themselves. how to shift practices, how to shift their behaviors to not only survive big change, but to capitalize on it and grow. And I have come to believe that the kind of secret, the key to driving change and creating innovation is actually super simple. And that's what I want to talk about today. Now, you might be thinking, who am I to talk about innovation? What right do I have to tell you about innovation? Which is a fair question. Specifically, what right do I have to come to the Public Sector Project Management Forum and tell you about innovation? Aside from being a university educator and leading a team of sort of education reformers, I don't really work in the public sector. And while I certainly manage lots of projects, I'm not a project manager. But I've worked with lots of people, and maybe it would help if I told you a little bit about myself. This is my wife, on the right. And 5 years ago we got married. 4 years ago this little guy came along. This is my son. I know, he's cute. And then our family of 3 became a family of 5 2 years ago when my wife produced these 2 little beautiful twins. I'll just say a word about the birth if I could. We delivered it. McMaster, an amazing hospital. There were 18 people in that delivery room before the twins even showed up. There's doctors, nurses, somebody selling peanuts over in the corner. People said, Joel, that must have been intense. To me, to be honest, the whole thing was relatively painless. I was eating peanuts the whole time. My wife was a hero. How amazing is it that we live in this awesome country of 18 professionals at our beck and call just to make sure everything goes smoothly. And everything did. We're so fortunate. This was the day they were born. You know, we got a new proud big brother. They grow up fast. Those of you, anybody have kids themselves? Anybody have aunties, uncles? Yeah, yes, or yes. Anybody know kids? You know kids? Yes. So they're learning how they have arms and stuff. And then this is more recent. And I share this. It's hard to get everybody smiling at the exact same moment. Maybe the metaphor for life, but I share these pictures not just to show you cute pictures of my kids, although that too, but because having kids, when I became a dad, kind of changed the way I looked at the world. You know, I started thinking a lot more about how my kids develop their personalities. How do they develop their beliefs about the world? And that made me think more about how I develop my beliefs about this world too. And when I was a kid, I liked to play with Lego. And I was good at math. And if you like to play with Lego and you're good at math, you sort of have a destiny of your career, right? Because if you like to play with Lego and you're good at math, everyone says, Joel, you're going to grow up to become... Did somebody say a dairy farmer? A shepherd you shall be. That's right. Yes, an engineer. That was the overwhelming response. An engineer. And I always just figured that, you know, I would study engineering and get an engineering job and do engineering work and live the dream. Right, by the time I got to high school, don't see, this is me in high school right here. Frankly, yes. Actually, you guys might remember the band Hanson. I was part of the band Hanson. And that's not photoshopped either, that's real. Anyway, so by the time I got to high school, I wasn't even considering anything else. I knew, and I went to McMaster University, studied engineering, got an engineering job, and I did it all the way up to the live the dream part. At which point, really quickly, I looked around in this job that I was working at doing my computer database stuff, and I realized, to my eye at least, that I was surrounded by a bunch of people who were living for the evenings and weekends. You know what I mean? People spending 8, 10, 12 hours a day doing something they cared absolutely nothing about, waiting for it to end so they could go home and watch TV. Actually, realistically, I think a lot of people are living for the evenings and weekends. We need a sense of purpose, not just at work, in our home life. We need it everywhere. I lasted 4 weeks on the job. Really quickly, my story turned from I am living the dream to 150 bucks a day. I can do this. And along with a 50-minute commute to go about 5 kilometers, I couldn't do it. I lasted 4 weeks, and that's not even really true because I was on vacation for one of the weeks. Now, some people say I didn't give it a chance, but to me it was just really obvious that I was on the wrong path for me. And when I think back about school and my experience of school, I realized that school kind of taught me a story. And it was never explicit, but I bought into this story that the way to a stable career and a successful life was to be good enough at doing what I was told. And don't ask questions, don't talk back, maybe most of all, don't make mistakes. And I think a lot of people buy into this story, actually. I teach a course at McMaster University, a course called Sustainability and Ethics in Engineering. It's kind of the non-technical course for final year engineering students. Sort of my secret mission to try to turn engineers into real people. And I have amazingly smart students, right? People who are incredibly talented at following instructions, but who are also incredibly uncomfortable the moment I present some ambiguous challenge that doesn't have a single right answer. I've worked with entrepreneurs who are trying to scale up, with managers who are trying to empower their teams, with educators who are trying to make education better. And everyone has beliefs about the world, stories in their mind, and those stories shape their actions. And the more I looked around, the more I realized that it's people's thinking that's holding them back. Right? If we change our stories, we get better results. And that actually is the simple key, I believe, to unlocking innovation and driving change. If we want to be more innovative, we need a better story. I'm going to talk more about that today. I don't really do engineering per se anymore. Although I still solve problems, I now consider it more problems of people rather than problems of technology. The tools of my trade have changed a fair bit. I've gone from calculators and compasses to juggling balls. Would you like to see some juggling today? Yeah, why not, huh? I brought some with me. How many people have seen juggling before? Awesome, so you would know there's some audience etiquette for juggling. If you see something that blows you away, it's totally awesome, totally amazing. Proper audience response, proper audience etiquette for juggling is... Give it your all. Clap, move, holler, scream, and cheer. Do you want to try it right now? No reason, clapping and cheering. 3, 2, 1, go. There we go. No reason. If you can get excited about nothing, you can get excited about anything. That's what you do if you see something that blows you away. If, on the other hand, you see something that's kind of like, moderately impressive. Proper audience response, proper audience etiquette for juggling is... Give it your all. Clap, move, holler. You're like, that's the same as the first one, right? The third situation, you may at some point see the juggler drop a ball. Or all 3 balls. If that happens, everybody's going to be feeling a little bit awkward. The proper audience response, give it your all. We'll get through it together. You ready for some juggling? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. There it is. Thank you. Yes. Look at that. If you want to make change happen, it has to be fun. If you want to drive change, it has to be fun. Just like how the energy changes when we do something fun. Huh? When people are having fun, they're more willing to learn. They open their minds, they let their guards down, they consider new possibilities. Now, I couldn't help but notice that not everyone was immediately and utterly blown away by that little display of juggling. And if you weren't, actually, you're right, because juggling is way easier than most people think. Juggling is based on a very simple idea, a very simple skill. If you can do this, you can juggle. Some people are like, oh yeah, I can't juggle. It's not the ideas you have, it's what you do with those ideas, how you apply those skills. Take the same simple idea, put it together, one other simple idea. It's 1, 2, or it starts to look a little bit better. 1, 2. Take those same simple ideas, put them together, one other simple idea, and they add up, hopefully, 1, 2, 3, to something more. Now, a lot of people don't believe me on this. They see something simple, and they think, well, that seems so simple, it couldn't possibly be very important. But I disagree. I think those little things that we do are some of the most important things that we do. And sometimes we get them right, and sometimes we get them wrong. You know, whether it's learning how to manage a project or utilize AI effectively. We talked about it today already. A lot of times, or when a manager gets involved, or how a leader gets involved. A lot of these things are simple ideas, but common sense is not always common practice. Now, your homework, if I can offer you some, is to find a little idea from today's little symposium. Put it with your own unique personality and change up your pattern a little bit. You put it in your context, right? And we can do, let's see if we can get it going. Fancy handwork like that. Thank you, yeah. That's a month of my life right there. You can do it. We can do a big juggle. You can do small juggling like this. Oh, it's so cute. You can do sideways juggling. You can do one-handed juggling. Oh, everybody say, oh. Or the other way, everybody say, ah. Or no way at all. Ooh. It's more impressive when you get the third one in there. Watch this. Okay, we'll try. Like a machine. What else can you do? You could do a bounce off your knee like that, or a throw under your leg like that. Ooh. Or you could try like a seal at SeaWorld. We'll give this a shot. I don't know. So close. You know some jugglers miss on the first try on purpose, just to build suspense. I don't do that. Here we go, one more time, we got it. Style finale under every leg. Here we go, the can. Thank you. Something I'd like to do sometimes. I know I'm being ridiculous. What's the point? The point is this is not that impressive. Right? I like juggling not just because it's fun, but because it stretches our ideas about what's possible. So, why is change so hard? If we all know creativity and innovation are important, why is it so difficult to make change? I basically think there are sort of three reasons, three barriers, if you want. And they're simple. Awareness, fear, and identity. And they all have to do with the stories that we tell ourselves. And that's what I'm going to talk about. So let's talk about awareness first. It is possible that people don't do things better because they're simply unaware that there is a better way to do things. Right? Everybody wants to do things better, but awareness always precedes performance. Right? Maybe they've just never considered it. Maybe they've never seen something better. Maybe they're only looking in their own circles. What's the biggest room in the world? The room for improvement. Cheesy, I know, but it's true. It's true. Right? The story that our way is the best way is an easy story to believe, especially if we're an industry leader, especially if we're being successful. Why change what works? But if we can get beyond that, we can say, look, awareness is about knowing that there is always a better way to do things. Would you agree that any idea can be improved? Sure, there is always room for improvement. That's awareness, that's the simple one. The second one, fear. we get over our fear of looking a bit silly, it unlocks all kinds of possibilities. I have a bit of a strange hobby. Anybody else have strange hobbies? Stuff? Anybody want to share? What are your hobbies? Not things you can say in public, that's fine. I have a bit of a strange hobby. Let's see here. Focus that. Oh, beautiful. I love to play with mouse traps. Yeah, I brought some with me today. Look. I didn't bring all of them. Have people seen mouse traps before? Is anybody, be honest, is anybody a little nervous of mouse traps? Yes, it's okay to be a little bit nervous of mouse traps. Let me show you how it works if I take a trap. Oops. If I take a trap like this and load it up like that. That's okay. Of the people who are a little nervous, I could use a volunteer, somebody who would be willing to help me out, maybe face their fear of mouse traps today. Who's willing to help me out? Not everyone all at once now. Not everyone all at once. Oh, you Kathy, you're too kind. You're too kind. No. What's your name? Cindy? Are you? I'm sorry, Cindy. Are you a little nervous of mouse traps, Cindy? A little. I looked over at your way, and we made eye contact for a moment, and then you looked away very quickly. It is a typical response. I get it a lot. Would you, Cindy, would you be willing to help me out? I was just drawn over. You would? Sure. Give her a little Come on around, watch your step there. Nice to meet you, Cindy.
Nice to meet you.
Where are you from?
Newmarket.
Newmarket. Welcome. Thanks for coming today. Cindy, have you ever played with mouse traps before?
Not played.
Not played with them. You've held them? Oh, sorry. You've held them?
Yes.
And used them. Are you a little nervous of mouse traps as it were?
Well, just that reflex action
Just the
happens if you don't set it up.
Yeah, the snappiness. This is the story. The snappiness. This is going to be fun. Cindy, go ahead, grab yourself a mouse trap. Grab yourself a mouse trap there. These ones aren't loaded, don't worry. Just anyone is fine. So far, it's going very well. Cindy, let me show you how a mouse trap works. For those of you who haven't seen one before, if I take a trap, I load it up like this. I put the little bar there under the trigger, and now it's loaded. Sorry. Oops. We'll use yours. It's actually kind of fun. They're sensitive. If you drop them upside down like this, Cindy, they go, woo! They drop right off the table. Isn't that fun? Cindy, let me show you. Be very gentle with them. There we go. I had something, pen somewhere here. Trusty pen. It's gone. Does anybody have a pen? Oh, there we go. Oh, there it was. Thanks. Here you go. Thanks. I've got a pen here. If I take the pen like this, and I touch it in the trap like this, it snaps onto the pen like that. If that were a mouse, he'd be an unhappy fellow. He'd be dead. Cindy, you and I are going to play a very fun game. You're going to love this game. You're going to love this game. This game is called Cindy Puts Her Hand on a Loaded Mouse Trap. Cindy, you're looking a little more nervous than you were a moment ago, which is fair. I've just asked you to do something scary. Maybe something you've never done before. We can empathize. I think empathy, one of the most important skills that leaders can have, right? If you can't put yourself in somebody else's shoes, how can you connect with them? How can you lead them? How can you guide them? And so we can empathize. I just told you you're going to do something scary. What you're not going to do, Cindy, is put your finger in the mousetrap, like I just put the pen in the mousetrap. If you did that, it would snap on your finger. It would hurt a lot. It would do nothing to help her fear of mousetraps. A mousetrap is a risky situation, no doubt about that, but just because there's a risk doesn't mean we need to avoid it. just means we need to stay intelligent, stay in control. What you can do, Cindy, if you choose, you can put your hand flat down over the trap like that, covering the whole thing, like you're pushing it through the table, and it will not snap on you, because you'll be holding it open. Would you be willing to give it a try?
We've known each other long enough to build that sense of trust.
What can I say, Cindy? Some friendships move quickly. Would you be up for it? You can say no at any time you like.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Cindy, you're not in this by yourself. You've got 200 friends right here who are going to support you through this. Cindy, one of the things I've noticed about amazing groups, amazing managers, leaders, is they recognize when somebody else is taking a risk, when they're taking a step outside of their comfort zone. They support them through that. Right? So often, when somebody tries something and fails, we shoot them down. We make a mockery of them. We ridicule them. And I don't think that works. People need to feel celebrated for taking chances. And that's exactly what we're going to do. You've probably got the best audience in Canada here today. So here's what's going to happen. Cindy's going to put her hand flat like that over the trap. The audience, you're going to start sending Cindy positive, silent vibes. You can do it, we believe in you, all this kind of stuff. Whenever she's ready, she's going to drop her hand flat on the trap. I'll try it. Yes! The audience, you will erupt into a round of applause and cheers. Cindy will hold her hand on the mousetrap and bask in the glory of conquering the mousetrap. Don't worry. Cindy, are you right or left-handed?
I am right-handed.
Right-handed. Use that with the right hand. You might want to use your left hand for this. I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. Cindy, I've done this literally hundreds of times. No one has ever been hurt. That's not to say that it's easy, only to say that it's safe. Safety glasses, Cindy. Safety glasses. I think very dangerous thing here. All right. I'm just kidding, Cindy. We don't need safety glasses. Cindy, here's how this is going to work. You're going to put your hand flat like that. Don't go any closer than that. One step at a time. That's how we do anything. Hand goes flat like that. Don't go any closer. See how that feels. Lead by example. I couldn't have said it better myself. Whenever you're ready. Okay, this is, how do you feel so? Sorry, I moved quickly there. I apologize. How do you feel now? Don't go any farther than that. You've already gone farther than some would ever choose to go. Way to go. You can say no at any time, like, I'm not going to push your hand down. Cindy, from here, it's going to feel like one of those go for it moments. You know those moments where you just commit to something, that you're not really thinking it through all the way? It might feel a little bit like that, Cindy. And it'll be like that. Like that, you go straight down and hold it there like you're pushing it through the table. I was doing this once with a group of my engineering students. Somebody yelled out from the back of the room, "Don't do it, it's a trap!" It's not a trap. I mean, it literally is. You know what I mean.
Accelerated trust.
Accelerated trust. Whenever you're ready, Cindy, going flat down like that. You don't want to go too slowly, right? It's sort of like a straight down, you hold it there. They're going to go nuts for it. How do you know you're not going to misangle your hand? Yeah, you don't want to do that. It's as easy as giving the table a high five. So can you practice? Like on the mousetrap? That's as good as doing it. Just like that. That was beautiful. That was a beautiful table high five. Yeah. Whenever it is, and you're going to hold it there. I'm going to get out of the way here. You got this. Whenever you're ready. Feeling the audience's positive, silent vibes. Yes! Cindy, you have your hand on a loaded mousetrap. How do you feel?
Scared to take my hand.
A little scared to take your hand up. Yeah, fair
I
enough.
feel great that
You did it. Yeah, you feel great.
overcome my fear.
You did overcome your fear. Yeah. Do you feel in pain right now? No.
Not yet.
Do you feel in control right now?
Right now.
Yeah, you're in total control right now, Cindy, at least until you take your hand, as you say, off the mousetrap, at which point it is going to snap. Hold your hand right there. Keep going. Enjoy the rest of the presentation. I'm just teasing. Yeah, let me leave you here. Sort of. Cindy, when you lift your hand, it is going to snap, I'll be honest with you, but it's not going to snap on you. You're going to lift your hand straight up like that. It's just going to sort of like friendly brush. Nice friendly brush against the palm of your hands. It might make a little noise, that's okay. Whenever you're ready, you go straight up. This is worth another round of applause when she does it, by the way. And Cindy, whenever you're ready, going quickly is good. You got this. Anytime. You're getting in a, yes, let me get in a position here too. That's easy. You got this, whenever you're ready.
1, 2, 3.
I was ready for it. Thank you. That's a gift for you. It's not loaded. It's not loaded. That's a gift for you. Give her one more round of applause. Look, I'll show you how it works. If I take a trap like this, and I load it up, put it on my hand just like Cindy did, it does trigger it, but there's nowhere for that trap to swing. And I'm holding it open. I tell people I like playing with mousetraps. What I really like doing is encouraging people to take chances. Encouraging people to push themselves, play a little bit. Because that's when we learn, that's when we grow. That's when we really live. And I think it's so easy to kind of get into a rut of routine. Things feel scary to us because they're new. That doesn't necessarily mean they're as dangerous as we think they are. A lot of times, I think innovation lives in that space between, routine and maybe a little bit crazy. And finding that balance for you, finding that tension. Because as scary as change might be, I think boredom is worse. We need to figure out, whatever it is that feels kind of exciting to you, but maybe feels just a little bit scary, that's probably exactly what you should go and do. I've been doing this demonstration for more than 10 years now. And I've probably heard every excuse in the book why people don't want to do it. People say, no, you don't understand. I had a bad experience as a kid. There's no way I'm letting that happen again. Okay, fine, you're kind of letting your past determine your future, but maybe we all do. They'll say, no, you don't understand. If something bad is going to happen, it's going to happen to me. It's a funny story to tell yourself. They'll say, dude, it's not a toy. Those things kill mice. I've probably heard every excuse in the book, and I had a realization a few years ago. Is that it's not the mousetraps that hold people back. It's the stories we tell ourselves. It's not the challenges in life, it's how we relate to those challenges. Maybe you woke up this morning in a great mood. Nothing had happened yet. You were just telling yourself this story that today was going to be a great day. We choose to forgive a friend because we tell ourselves the story that a good friendship is worth working for. Lots of people from a young age start telling themselves, I'm not a math person. I'm not a math person. And they stop putting in the effort. And sure enough, they become not a math person. Same is true with people who believe they're not creative. People say, I'm just not creative. Well, why would they bother to put in any effort? Of course, innovation and creativity the path there is full of obstacles and setbacks. The only reason we would bother to go through it, to push through that stuff, is because we tell ourselves the story that that's what we do as people who are driving change. Everything, all those obstacles become things that are on the way, not in the way. I think It's our stories that we tell ourselves about our organizations. Maybe I can share with sort of like a personal story too. This is my mom on the right. And I never thought of my mom to be much of a risk taker. In fact, I don't think she ever thought of herself to be much of a risk taker. And maybe my mom was a lot like so many people, all these people that I've met, because frankly, when I look back at our school system created the story, our school system prepared us not for innovation and creativity, but for conformity and compliance. And my mom, I think, just didn't want to take chances. But something changed for my mom at about age 57. She came home and said, "Joel, guess what? I've started taking line dancing lessons." She said, "Yeah, and I've started doing Tai Chi." "Really?" And she said, "I want to learn to juggle. Joel, can you teach me to juggle?" "Yeah, sure." How many people, just out of curiosity, have tried juggling before? Who wanted to learn to juggle? How many people have tried for more than 10 minutes? Okay, it's always my question. My mom, this is often what happens. My mom said, "I can do 2, but I can't get to 3. Is anyone in that situation? It looks like this. People say, "I can do 2, but I can't get to 3. Right? And a lot of the time, learning to do something, learning some new skill, requires that we change our fundamental understanding of something else. So a lot of people think that juggling goes in a circle like this. This is the throw-pass method. Technically, it's called the shower. Right? My left hand, you see my left hand, it's never throwing the ball, only ever passing to my right hand. You can do that method with 3, but you have to go really fast, because you have to have 2 balls in the air the whole time. It's different than the throw method I showed you earlier. But the first time you tell somebody, no, it goes like this. The throw method, you're going to throw 1, 2 like that. The first time they try it, you go 1, 2 like that. And it ends up, the ball ends up in a different room. And it's easy to think, oh, that was a waste of time. That was a waste of effort. That's not the way to do things. That's not the way to get better. I'm worse when I do it that way. And so they stop trying. And they're not willing to unlearn what they need to. So my mom did learn to juggle. She practiced a little bit. And she practiced that. It took her about a year. Most things worth doing take a little longer than 10 minutes to learn how to do well. And it was kind of cool because the next year, the next Christmas, we went to see my grandmother, her mom. She was in the nursing home. She had Alzheimer's. And there's my mom on Christmas morning at age 58 putting on her debut juggling performance for her mom. And she continues to juggle. Here we are, not too long ago, looking proud, you know. And my mom, something had changed in her identity. Something had changed because she continues doing this kind of stuff to this day. My mom is now herself fighting Parkinson's, and she's joined ballet and line dancing, and here she is with her kickboxing group. Her kickboxing group for Parkinson's. They're fierce. And what I've learned, the number one motivator for people isn't money. It's a sense of purpose. We need a sense of purpose at home and at work. If we can tap into people's intrinsic motivation, it unlocks all kinds of potential. This is sort of the thing. Purpose and identity are so linked, I think. And when I think back on my own identity, as a kid, I was good at school. I could do well. I could do well in math. But somewhere along the line, I started to believe that if I wasn't good at things, I wasn't worth anything. In fact, I told myself the story that if I wasn't good at everything, I wasn't worth anything. And I was age 32 when I figured this out, by the way. But when I did, all of a sudden, so many things in my life became more understandable to me. Like why I cried every time I made a mistake in school until 8th grade. The stakes are high. And I've done therapy and done work to try to bust through these old stories and replace them with something more helpful, more realistic. Something like, yeah, making change is worth it. Making mistakes is okay. No wonder I didn't want to try anything new or take any risks. The stakes were incredibly high. And I think we all have stories like this that hold us back. We all need to do work to figure out, why don't we want to change? Why don't we want to sit in the front row? Why don't we want to say hi to somebody we haven't met before? How are we going to make innovation happen if we can't even do the little things? Now, I've tried to get rid of these things. I mean, maybe they don't ever really go away. They just kind of change form. Or we can be more aware of them as they pop up. It still shows up in pangs. Like when my wife suggests a different way of loading the dishwasher. The reason I resist is because it makes me feel like I didn't do it perfectly, and therefore I'm unlovable. We need a different story. Now, I got thinking, if we're talking about identity, maybe the question is not just on an individual level, but on an organizational level. This question: how might we build innovation into the identity of our organizations? If your core values are perfection and predictability, frankly, innovation and creativity don't stand a chance. We need to reconceptualize who we are as an organization and as people. That is what's holding back innovation, I believe. Now, I got thinking, would you agree that it's different to watch something or to know something than to kind of do it for yourself? Do you know what I mean? Like, we can talk about what holds back innovation, talk about courage, but you can watch Cindy put her hand on a mousetrap, but you have to agree it would be different if you were the one putting your hand on a mousetrap, yeah? And there might be something else to be gained by having a first-hand experience with something. And so I got thinking, since I brought a few hundred mousetraps, we should totally do it. Here's what's going to happen. Yeah. I brought some extras. And I'm going to hand these out. And we're going to take like 3 minutes to play. Now, when you do this, you can play with it if you want. You can figure out how to load it. If you've never held one before, figure it out. Play around with it. A lot of people are nervous of things just because they haven't ever tried something before. Get to know your mousetrap, and maybe you want to try it with a partner. You could try the exercise that Cindy did. You could put your hand on it like that. Oops. Or you could put one on your hand and have a friend put their hand on your mousetrap, and they hold one too, and then you go like that, and then you just hang out for a while. The advanced version of that one, a high five with the mousetrap. We're going to play, and this is challenge by choice. You don't have to do anything, but my suggestion right now is to get to know somebody new. Reach out, challenge yourself. Choose to challenge yourself in some way that makes you feel just a little bit uncomfortable. Who knows what there is to be gained. All right. I'm going to start the music and pass these out. 3 minutes. That thing's going to tell us when we're done. Ready? Go. Set them all back. Set them around. There we go. Good. Yeah, there we go. I'll come back. I'll come this way. Have a seat again, have a seat again. I'll show you the trick that works to keep my 15 minutes of fame at Toronto Airport. Jumping loaded rat traps. By the way, if you took a risk, you are welcome to keep one of those mouse traps at the end as you go home today. Keep it on your desk as a souvenir. It's a reminder that sometimes things that are scary are actually worth it. Juggling loaded rat traps. Here. Listen, I'm going to have a moment of silence for my own concentration. One little trick, I call it too close for comfort. Here it is, right here. There we go. Risking my life for your amusement. Yes. Yes. It's finished. Yeah, that was intense. Like we were camping. Intense. So how do you change an organization? Well, what you don't do, in my opinion, is throw more money at the problem. What you don't do is sink more energy into managing change. What you absolutely must do is lead by example. Ask yourself, are you willing to do things differently? Are you willing to try things you've never tried before? Maybe look a little bit silly. Are you willing to make mistakes in front of people who work for you and in front of your bosses? I think we have to lead by example with this. Are you willing to look a little silly? I am. Now, with that in mind, I have a bit of a finale plan. And I'll say right now, I have no idea if this is going to work. Let's see if I can get myself ready here. I brought with me, I better take these off too. I brought with me an exceptionally large balloon. And what I'm about to do is, no, it's not the most, it's not the most dangerous thing I have done today. And it's not even the most impressive thing I'll do today. But it might just be the most absurd thing I do today. There's an old saying, to achieve the impossible, attempt the absurd. And so that's what I'm going to do. What I'm about to try, I'll tell you right now, is attempt to climb inside this balloon. And I'll tell you exactly how it's going to work. The technique, I should say, as a safety disclaimer, this stunt should never be attempted alone. Does anybody happen to have a knife with them today? You do. I don't know if I should be relieved or... Sir, it's possible that if something happens, if it looks like I pass out while I'm inside this balloon, the air could quickly escape. the balloon would squeeze shut, and I would be trapped inside a giant latex party favor. If that happens, use your knife, sir. Save my life. Now, the technique of this is actually not too complicated. After the head, I go in arm by arm. That's right, I put my balloons on one arm at a time, just like everybody else. And once I've got my torso in, then comes the hardest part, which is sliding the balloon down over my hips and bum without letting any air leak out of the balloon. Maybe in case this doesn't go well, I should say my thank yous now. I want to thank Sherry and the team at HPL here and everyone who's been involved in the Public Sector Project Management Forum. It's been my privilege to be involved and to share some time with you today. I do what I do because I believe that everybody has a role to play in making our world better. And I want to say thank you to you, not just for being so welcoming to me today, but for your role that you play each and every day in making the world better. It takes all of us in all of our own unique ways, and we need you for my kids, for your kids, and for all of us. If anybody ever wants to keep in touch, you can find me you can find me in here. You can find me online at Joel Hilchey, joelhilchey.com. If something I've said has been useful to you or might be useful to your organization, by all means, get in touch. As Sherry said, I've got some books, gifts for you guys at the back. Feel free to grab one if you want me to sign it. I'm happy to, no pressure. Maybe it'll be worth like an extra buck a day or something, one day or something, I don't know. Probably not. Let me also say this before I try this. This is something that everybody in this room, almost everybody in this room, could probably do. It's also something that everybody in this room probably won't do. But just take a moment and ask yourself what your story is about. If you didn't know it was possible to get inside a big balloon, that's an awareness thing. Fair enough. Now you know. If you think you shouldn't get inside this thing, that's a fear thing. Right? And that might be a reasonable fear. But if you think you just wouldn't, that you're not the type of person who would get inside a balloon, that's an identity thing. And maybe you're proud of that, maybe you don't like it. The great thing about our identities is that we can change them when we want. And I think that's exactly what we need to do with our organizations. We need to redefine who we are. Stop asking how do we grow our bottom line. Start asking how do we make a bigger impact in this world. Stop asking how do we drive innovation. Start asking who do we want to be as an organization, and let the activities follow from that. Stop asking how do we motivate people to do this or that. Start asking what do people actually want to do, and how do we make that more fun. At some point, what we need to do is stop thinking about the details and dive in head first. I'm still here, don't worry, I'm still in the balloon. Now, from here. a difference, and we need you. I know our back row is still moving. I know it's like, I don't want to move, I don't want to change.
There's a whole empty front row right here.
Yeah.
Okay, while you're moving, having reintroduced Joel Hilchey, who was our lunchtime speaker, for this session, Joel is going to give us techniques, particular technique called brain spouting, an approach to generating ideas. So that creativity that he was speaking about in his session at lunchtime, we're going to dig into some ways of tapping into that creativity and getting ideas out of people. And I believe that there will be no balloons damaged or injured in the delivery of this presentation. Take it away, Joel.
Thanks so much. No, we're all good. No balloons from here. I asked before, just another show of hands, how many people believe that they are creative? So if you're not convinced yet, start convincing yourself. I'm going to try to prove that to you through this session, and then I'm going to talk about how we can kind of foster that in other people as well. This presentation, I called it Eliminate Judgment. It turns out that's a huge fear, a huge barrier to people being creative. And even though you know that creativity is important because you're here, you also probably know that creativity does not thrive in most organizations, right? And I think there are a few reasons for that. Reason number one is because people don't believe they're creative. That's the story, that's what we talked about this morning. The second reason is because even when people do believe they're creative, often group or team environments stifle that creativity. They shut it down. And so we're going to talk about how to not do that so that we can go from here. This really is about creativity, but admittedly, disclaimer, it's based on the book that you all have a copy of. If you want it now, Brainstorming, How to Become Fearlessly Creative and Have Better Ideas More Often. I'm a little biased because I wrote the book, but it's good, I think. And so this is going to be kind of a fast overview of the types of things that are in that book, and hopefully a little warm-up to it. Before we get where we're going, we need to know where we are. This originated because years ago, about a decade ago now, I started a thing called the Beanstalk Project. It was essentially an unconference for students to help them generate their own community project ideas. And I believe that students wanted to make a difference in the world. They wanted to do things for real, but they didn't know what to do exactly. And so we said, well, we need to teach them how to do these things, how to come up with ideas. So this is where it came from. It sort of originated there. I'll tell you more of that story in a moment. But for now, what I want you to do, some of you have a copy of the book. I want you right now I'm going to put 1 minute on the clock, and it's your job to come up with alternative uses for this book. Now, don't go yet. You can work in partners, a group of 3, maybe say hello to the person next to you if you want. So obviously you could read it, and I hope you will. But you could also say use it as an umbrella, right, in the rain, right, or a frisbee in the summer, right? Don't use those ones because I just gave them to you. But your job is to come up with alternative uses for this book. You can jot them down if you want. The only thing I'd ask with your partner or whoever, keep track of how many ideas you get. 1 minute on the clock. On your mark. Get set. Go. If you want to write down that number, go ahead, underline it if you would. We'll call that your baseline number, your baseline. Just by shouting some numbers for me, how'd you do? How many people, how many ideas did you come up with? 8, 10, 9, what's that? 19, 13. That's pretty good. 8, 10. Did everyone come up with at least one idea? Congratulations, you are creative. So you're like, that's a low bar. It is a bit of a low bar, but a lot of people have this idea of creativity. They think that in order to call themselves creative, they have to have invented something that totally changed the world. Right? That bar is far too high. If you demonstrated that you came up with at least one new idea, you demonstrated you have the same machinery that somebody would use to come up with an idea that sort of changes the world. It just maybe isn't developed to that extent yet. Everyone in here has the capacity to be creative. Now, if you found that your baseline was kind of low, and that's fine. A lot of people find that a brainstorming activity like that doesn't really work too well for them. And I think I've got an idea as to why. So if you think back to your first experience of brainstorming, whenever that was, for me, maybe around 6th grade. And my 6th grade geography teacher said, you need to brainstorm 5 ideas for your geography project. But I already knew I wanted to do my project on volcanoes. Why? 2 words, hot lava. To a grade 6 boy, that's reason enough. And so I wrote down volcanoes, and then I wrote down 4 other stupid ideas that I had no intention of actually doing to satisfy the brainstorming requirement. Does this sound familiar to people? Yeah. And it's not, I mean, my teacher was well-intentioned, right? She was trying to promote creativity. But we sort of missed the point, and it seems innocent enough. But there are at least 2 negative side effects that came from this. The first is that because we didn't come up with any new ideas, we got cynical of the process. And that still exists all the way through. You can see it now. Go back to your teams and say, we're going to have a little brainstorming session, and just watch people roll their eyes. Right? This never worked. The second thing is that it's actually not quite consistent with the first, but it's deeper. It's a story. Because people keep using brainstorming, creative people use brainstorming, it must be working for somebody somewhere, we assume, somewhere deep inside. But it wasn't working for us, so maybe we were the problem. We lost faith in our creative capacity. Now, not that we were doing it right, but it didn't matter, right? So there are these 2 negative side effects. Now, I've been lucky enough to study creativity and work on practice a lot since then. And when we got this group of people together, this group of students, we said, well, we're going to have some sort of ideation session. What should we do? I don't know, brainstorming? Like, what else is there? So we went online, looked up brainstorming. We pretty quickly found ourselves on a website that listed the 4 rules of brainstorming. Is anybody struck by a new thought? Anybody thinking, rules? Brainstorm. I thought brainstorming was about getting rid of the rules, right? Anything goes. Kind of. I was finished university at this point. Nobody had ever told me that there might be rules of the game when it came to brainstorming. Well, we learned the 4 rules. We introduced them to students. We had pretty modest expectations. Our first conference had like 12 students, 10 community mentors at it. And what happened blew us away, actually. In a little more than 10 minutes of ideation, this group of 12 students came up with over 300 ideas. I thought, wow, that's pretty good. And some of the ideas were so unique and novel, the energy from that session carried us through the rest of the 3-day conference. It was really incredible. We said, what did we do that was different? Like, this never happens in a brainstorming session. What did we do? We started testing it out with different people. We would teach it and try it with any group that we could, at conferences, with companies, with educators. And eventually, what we learned became the book. Right? We said, we need to share this with people. We're doing something differently here. We'd like to think, we're a little better at it now than we used to be. This is our list. Oops. This is our list. We went for 2 minutes, but we got 41 ideas together, 2 of us, Brandon Love and I. When I say we, I'm talking about my colleague Brandon Love and I. He's a Hamiltonian also, but he and I wrote the book together. Some of the, I like some of these. A little teeny tiny footstool. The number 12, when you need that just extra centimeter of elevation there. Or, I'm curious, did anybody else, right, I won't be offended, toilet paper? Anybody come up with toilet paper? Yes, thank you for that. Origami supply, surfboard for mice, cheese, or other small creatures. Yeah, sure. A fashion accessory. You don't even have to read it, you can just carry it around. Looks great. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Joel, these ideas are ridiculous. Right? Creativity, as I define it, is the process of coming up with original ideas that have value. We like Sir Ken Robinson's definition. He's a creativity guy. Also look him up if you haven't come across him before. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Joel, how do these ideas have any possible value at all? These are ridiculous. The answer is that to us, all ideas have value. All ideas have value because either an idea is beneficial in and of itself, it yields a return, or it's valuable, it solves a problem maybe, or it paves the path to another idea that might be useful. Have you ever thought about where ideas come from? Maybe we can talk right now. You have an idea about that right now. Where do ideas come from? Anybody want to take a guess? Other ideas. Yeah. It could be dreams, problems, things we see, sensory information, but all of that gets conceptualized or like generalized as thoughts, ideas, things in our mind. Our brains recognize a pattern and they come up with something new. You could imagine your brain sort of just like a pattern machine, right? And have you ever played those games, that game Word Association? Where you start with a word and then you say the first word that comes to mind. And there's no wrong answers. And then your partner says the first word that comes to mind after they hear that word. And you go back and forth like that. Have you ever played that game? We should totally play right now, shouldn't we? Yeah, let's do that. Let's start with the word light. Light. With your partner, a group of 3. Just any word that comes to mind. Go ahead. Now. Where do you end up? Hibernation. Elephants. Satan. Cows. Anybody? Red. My guess is if we went around this room, we would all end up on different words. Furthermore, my guess is that we could not have predicted where we would end up. Right? And that's actually the more important part. Is that when we start some sort of association creative process, we can't predict where it's going to end up. Now notice that this activity is sort of like a giant string of toppling dominoes, where each one leads to the next, leads to the next. Right? Often, people, in groups, they don't just spit out ideas. Notice this activity is not particularly difficult. Right? The hardest part of this activity is being willing to say the word that pops into your mind. That's by far the hardest part. Going, I don't know, are they going to think I'm a doofus for saying this word? I don't even see the connection here. Satan. I don't know where that came from. The biggest barrier to this is being willing to get out of our own way and say the thing that is on our mind. We do this. Our brains do this. Where do ideas come from? Your brain is like an association machine, and each new idea that it gets, it might make 1,000 different connections, and some of those seem more relevant, and each idea leads to the next, leads to the next. Now, if we're in a group and we say, hey, who's got a good idea? We've got this problem. What can we do about it? Does everyone start spitting out ideas, left, right, center? No. Why not? Is it that they can't think of any ideas? What do? They sit around in silence. Awkward silence most of the time. Why? It's because of fear. Exactly that. Now, your brain is an association machine. You are creative, you are generating the ideas, but that creativity doesn't always get expressed. That's kind of the main thing here. Now, the reason that it doesn't come out in a lot of situations is because we ask the wrong question. Your brain is really good at being critical, and your brain is really good at being creative, but it's really bad at being both at the same time. When we ask the question, who's got a good idea? What should we do? We're asking people to both generate ideas and judge them to be good enough, worthy of sharing at the same time. You see how it happens? Right? You can see it in people. They'll actually who's got a good idea? Stupid. Right? They have the idea, it doesn't leave their lips, and they don't say it. What they've just done is the equivalent of taking a domino out of the chain. There's no association, so there's never a flow that can get going. So what do we do instead? We need to be creative and be critical, but not both at the same time. So this is the first thing here, and this is kind of maybe the biggest message of this whole workshop, is if we want to have creativity flourish in organizations, we have to take more time, develop more spaces where we will just be creative, where we specifically say, let's turn off the critical mindset here. You can imagine these two ways of thinking, right? That's not to say that we're never going to be critical. It's not to say that we're going to do all the ridiculous ideas that come out from this. It's saying that when we create spaces where there can be some creative thinking, where it's not hindered by critical judgment and the critical thinking, what is that? The comparing, judging, refining, evaluating, any of that kind of stuff. When we can get rid of that, we end up generating better ideas. Would you agree that our first ideas are never our best ideas? Not everyone agrees with this. I'm not talking about whether you should second guess yourself on a multiple choice test or something, or go with your first instinct. Would you agree that any idea can be improved? Yes. Our first ideas, therefore, are never our best ideas. Our first ideas, they may be the best yet, but they're not the best of all possible ideas. And yet, a lot of decisions, especially on teams, get made with this process. We do something called satisficing. You might have heard of this before, portmanteau of satisfy and suffice. And it's the process of taking the first good enough idea. The first idea that nobody immediately shoots down. It looks like this. Somebody says, hey, we got this problem. What should we do about it? Somebody says, well, what if we tried X? Nah, the boss is going to go for X. What if we tried Y? No, we tried Y last year. That didn't work. Okay, what if we tried this? No, this would cost too much. Well, what if we tried that? No objections. Great, that's what we'll do. That's the one. What did we just do? We just took the first idea that nobody immediately shot down. The first good enough idea that didn't, pass somebody's, or that didn't get shot down by somebody's own mental bar of what is good enough. What are the odds that that's the best of all possible ideas? Pretty slim. I say satisficing is a really good way to get a good enough idea when time is tight. But it's a really bad way to get an awesome idea. If we're not going to satisfice, what are we going to do instead? Brainstorm. Brainstorming is about cultivating the optimal conditions for creativity. You might have noticed it sounds kind of organic. Anybody have a green thumb, like growing things? Some people. You would know you can't force a seed to grow. It's in it to grow, but you can't force it. What you can do is get the conditions right. You get the right soil, the water, the light. The seed can't help it sprout. People are the same way. You cannot force people to have good ideas. What you can do is get the conditions right. If you get the conditions right, then people are naturally creative and their ideas actually are expressed rather than held inside. So I know what you're thinking. What are the ideal conditions for creativity? I'm glad you asked. There are 4. The first, during that creative time, the time when we're going to shut out the critical thinking, We want to go for quantity, not quality. We're going to have a lot of ideas. Think about it like mining. If we want to find a lot of gold, we don't go and pick for pieces of gold. What we do is we dig up a lot of muck, we put it through a machine, and the gold comes out the other side. Right? We put it through a big filter, essentially. If we want to find even more gold, we don't pick harder, we don't improve the filter, we dig up more muck and put it through the machine. Brainstorming, that initial creative process, is about having a lot of ideas, putting a lot of muck into the process. And a lot of it is going to be garbage. Total waste. And that's good. Second one, no judging. Anyone know what the biggest fear in the world is? As stated by people. Not spiders, not snakes, not even death. Public speaking. Death is number 2. Jerry Seinfeld once quipped, he said, that means if you have to be at a funeral, more people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. Dark humor. But we're not really scared of public speaking, because we speak in public all the time. What are we afraid of? Judgment. Looking stupid. Rule number 2 is no judging. We need to create spaces where we turn off that judgment. Right? What does judgment look like? But how would you actually, any sort of challenging question like that? That cost too much, that's ridiculous. What are you even thinking? I don't see how that would work. People are never going to go for that. Right? Often we're our own biggest judges. Right? And that's where they judge, oh, this is stupid, I don't even want to say it, I can't even imagine how this would work. The problem is, when we judge, we don't get the goal of quantity. Right? Then nothing seems to fit. And so we can't put the muck into the machine. And we never get the flow started. I get to do this a bunch. I see lots of people judging without realizing it. I'm pretty good at spotting it now. But I can't be everywhere at all times. You probably even can't be anywhere. I like to train people as the no judging police force. If you would please stand up, stand up. It's a simple process, don't worry. Stick a finger in the air if you would. Thanks for choosing your index finger. I appreciate that. Not everyone's so polite. On the count of 3, you're going to point that finger at somebody in a silly, snarky voice. Say, no judging, like that. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Point it at someone different. 1, 2, 3, go. Last one, at yourself. 1, 2, 3, go. And then, of course, you'd say, but don't worry about it, I forget sometimes too. And you get back to the task of coming up with a lot of ideas. Give yourselves a round of applause. You are now certified. You're going to seat. You are now certified as the no judging police force. And whenever you're in an ideation session, not just today, not just here, but anytime you're at a work meeting with anybody, and somebody's judging inappropriately, feel free to pull out that finger. You are fully empowered. No judging. Given that, I promise your friends and family will think you're the coolest. Rule number 3: silly is good. Silly is good. Why? Silly ideas help us break out of our old ways of thinking and think of different stuff. Right? It's like we get in a rut of our thinking. We need to jump off the train tracks of inertia and find a different way. Silly ideas, being intentionally ridiculous, create the conditions for that. Right? So I can say, this is a lovely room. How do we improve the room? Well, we could paint it. What could we do? We could paint the walls, we could paint the floors, we could paint the chairs, we could paint the ceilings, we could paint the stage, we could paint the people. Don't judge it. What else could we do? We could do all kinds of things, right? And silly is that we could change a door, right? We could rip the roof off the room. Now you might say, that's ridiculous. If it rained, we'd get wet. We don't even know what's above here. I say, no judging, right? Because then maybe if I say, rip the roof off, I say, well, I like daylight. There's no windows in this room. People say, well, you need, it's a theater. You want to have dark spaces. I say, no judging. Right? Yes, okay, fine. Skylights with electronic dimmers. Or fresh air is nice. How about we have some windows that open up? Or what if we had some kind of cool heat exchanger window that allowed us to have fresh air anywhere in the library without losing our heat? I don't know if that even works. Now, that would be cool. Right? Now all of a sudden you start thinking a little differently. Right? And my guess is nobody was thinking about heat exchanger windows or daylight until I said let's rip the roof off the building. Right? And this is the point. Silly ideas help us think differently. They help jump to new ways of thinking. And we need to be intentionally ridiculous. Fourth one, piggyback. Not just a fun form of physical entertainment for almost all ages. Piggybacking is about building many ideas out of one. So let's take this room example. I said, what could we do with it? We could paint it, right? We could paint the walls, the people, all the things, right? We piggyback on each of those ideas. What else could we paint, is what I'm saying in my mind. We could say, okay, the door, we could paint the door. What else could we do with the door? We could make it bigger. We could make it smaller. We could make it one of those cool Willy Wonka doors, right? A special kids section of the library with small doors, small everything. We could make the door of glass or wood or metal or make it out of beads or feathers. No judging. Or we could make it one of those cool double swinging saloon doors. We kick our way into the library every time we come in. I don't know. I'd want to go to the library more often if I could kick my way into it. And all of a sudden we've got a bunch of new ideas. And even if those ones seem ridiculous, any one of those ideas might have sparked a new idea in your mind of something else that could be interesting. And this little piggyback leads to that little piggyback until they go all the way home, right? These are the 4 guidelines. I think that when we want to set up a space for creative activity, where we want to get rid of groupthink, where we want to get rid of judgment, we focus on these things. And it's so simple to set it up. A lot of the time, just saying it at the start of a meeting makes all the difference. Kind of like when you have a meeting and somebody says, I just want to remind everybody, this is a private meeting and everything we talk about is going to stay confidential today. Right? That might be standard practice, but the fact that the act of saying it makes people a little more comfortable. Right? It's a little more intentional about how do we do this? What kind of atmosphere do we want to set up? And we need to do this. When we have an ideation session, whether it's with students or teachers, when we work in schools, we spend a good chunk of time talking about these guidelines in order to do 12 minutes of intense ideation. Right? And you can do that too. It matters. Just like preparing the plot of a garden is just as important as regular weeding. We need both activities. Do these things look familiar to anybody? Come across them before? They happen to be the 4 original rules of brainstorming. We didn't make this up. We just kind of reframed it a little bit. Originally, we thought brainstorming was sort of a replacement for brainstorming, but we've shifted that thinking. We now have come to see brainstorming as sort of like as idea gardening, and brainstorming is one of the tools that we have. But really, we're trying to create the ideal conditions for creativity, and we've got these activities. There's a lot of different things. I'm going to talk about more of the things, but I want to see how we've done here. A lot of times people say, I'm not creative. They're just not trying hard enough. They haven't actually given it a good effort. They say things like, oh, we had a great brainstorming session. We spent a half an hour. I was like, cool, how many ideas did you come up with? 3. Oh, great. What did you do with the other 29 minutes? Right? They gave you 30 minutes and 3 ideas. What that tells me is you weren't really generating ideas for 30 minutes. Probably what was happening is maybe you were justifying the ideas that you had just generated. Saying, oh, this is really good because this is, maybe you were comparing the ideas. Maybe you were just talking about the problem. I call it complaining dancing. Where people get into a brainstorming session like, what do we do about this? Well, this is a huge problem. I don't see how we're going to fix it. Right? That's why we're meeting, because we're trying to solve the problem. Stop being a complaining pants. And sometimes people just get sidetracked. They start talking. This happens all the time. People say, well, let's have a planning meeting. Great. But then all your planning is like where you're going for lunch after the meeting. Right? And we're so inefficient in our meetings. I think people smell this in meetings. In my experience, what we should do is have intense sprints is not the right word, but bursts of creative time. 12 minutes is about right. We're going to generate, nothing but generate for about 12 minutes, see what we come up with, go away, let the ideas settle a little bit, harness the power of the subconscious. Because you ever have good ideas well after an ideation session? Right, your brain kind of like gently rests against this problem. A lot of people have good ideas on the toilet. Anybody good ideas on the toilet? Okay, not, you don't want to admit it publicly, sure, yeah. Or when you're lying down to go to sleep at night. Turns out by changing the position of your body, lying down, doing things, you trigger different connections in your mind. And your brain is kind of subconsciously working on these things. Notably, going on Facebook and doing your email is not a good use of the subconscious. It's too engaging for us, and our brain forgets about the problem it was trying to work on. So after a good ideation session, go for a walk, go, have some lunch time, just have some like downtime, casual time, and more ideas will come out. Carry a pen and paper with you to capture them as they come out. So we're going to do this. I want to see if you've done anything. I'm going to put another minute on the clock. And your job, you don't even bother writing down your ideas if you don't want to, because it's faster to just come up with it. Your job is to come up with as many ways as possible to make a pig fly. 1 minute on the clock. On your mark. Let's see. Get set. Go. Okay, moment of truth. You can circle that number if you're writing it down. We'll call that your piggy number. Moment of truth. How many people, their piggy number was higher than their baseline? Look around the room. A measurable increase in creativity in just 20 minutes of training. Give yourself a round of applause. Did everybody end up with a piggy number that's lower than their baseline? A few. I'm sorry I've made you dumber. No, thank you. No, you're not really dumb, right? You've now had the equivalent of 2 minutes of practice. Well done. Obviously, the more you do this, the better you get. The far better question than what number did you get is how did you do? Right? Did you find yourself getting sidetracked? Did you find yourself staying super focused on quantity? Did you find judgments creeping in? Was that really flying? I don't know. It's sort of a jump. Does falling count? Does the pig have to be living? Were you being intentionally silly? Did you piggyback on somebody else's ideas? This is the most fun when we can hear some of the answers. Let's hear what you come up with. Shout some out for me. What'd you come up with? Fire it out of a cannon, yeah. Push it off a roof.
Teach him to be a pilot.
Teach it, train it to be a pilot. Helicopter or plane. What's that? An umbrella like Mary Poppins. Give a Mary Poppins umbrella, yeah. What else? Give a Red Bull. Yeah. A drone? Yeah. Zip line. Sure, I'm flying. Push him off a cliff, right? Throw a football? Throw a pigskin? Serve bacon on a plane? Give it sunglasses? That pig is fly. Some of my favorites, people come up. I recognize ethically questionable, some of them. I recognize that. How do you make a pig fly? Very strong kicks. Like that, I don't know. My favorite one, how do you make a pig fly? Motivation. Come on, pig! Get up there! Get up! Get up! Come on, pig! You can do it! Obviously, this is goofy. There's a lot of value in it, though, to be able to turn off the judgment just for a short period of time and say, what could we come up with? I love teaching creativity, and I love sharing it with people, and I believe it's needed in the world, not just to have better ideas, but there are at least 7 reasons. There are probably lots more. One is when we teach people to be creative, they end up with a higher sense of self-efficacy. That's that I can feeling, right? This feeling of capability that allows them to say, oh, I can solve it, oh, I can do this. They're more resilient. We realize that when we're creative, most of our ideas are garbage. And we kind of get over that, and we're like, oh, I'm not a bad person because I had a bad idea, right? I need this one. It's like, oh, I can just say a bunch of stupid ideas, and it doesn't matter if they fail, because that's not me. My ideas are not me. And maybe somebody else can help me make them better. And we can go from there. More sophisticated problem-solving skills, because they can generate more possibilities. They're usually more successful as a team member and as an individual, because they can see more possibilities. You train people to see lots of options instead of just one. People, I think, have a stronger sense of citizenship. They stop saying, somebody should do something about that. Then they start saying, what can I do? What can we do to make a change? Distributed entrepreneurship that we were talking about. And I think life is just more fun when you see the world through a lens of possibility. There are a few other things. These are just like kind of a point to the other chapters in the book. One of the things that you may want to do, a good creative facilitator has a ton of tools in their pocket. And they know just what tool to use at the right time. There are literally hundreds of these tools out there. We chose a dozen of them, put them in a book in one of the chapters. Things like warm-up activities, like the make a pig fly activity or whatever. What do you do to get people kind of in the spirit of doing something a little bit goofy, a little bit silly? No judging police force, right? These are tools that you can use. It could be things like making a random object list to help spark people's ideas when the flow runs dry. Or it could be like knowing, one that's kind of interesting is changing lenses. So if you're generating ideas for some problem, let's do something silly. How do you get a cat out of a tree? How do you get a cat out of a tree? Shout out some answers for me. Cut down the tree. You call a fireman. Sure. How would a fireman get a cat out of a tree? They use a ladder. How would a football player get a cat out of a tree? Throw a football at it, sure. Or they tackle the tree, shake the tree, the cat falls into the arms of the wide receiver. How would a fast food order get a cat out of a tree? Fry it out. That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Throw a burger at it. I don't know. You just want to throw things at cats. You build a drive-through so the lazy cat can stay in the tree and feed them up there. Notice, maybe a lawyer. How do you get a lawyer? How would a lawyer get a cat out of a tree? Threaten to sue the city unless the city comes and gets the cat out of the tree. Right. Notice how notice just by priming your brain with a different lens, a different occupation in a sense, you come up with totally different ways of solving the same problem. And we can use this in our problem-solving meetings, for things. We can say like, well, how would a customer solve this problem? What's it like from their perspective? How would a retired person experience this? How would a baby experience this, or a kid? Right? What about somebody in IT, somebody in HR, somebody in the legal department? You can basically try on all these different hats, if you want, these different lenses, and you'll see the problem totally differently. So if you're the creative facilitator, the question is, when do you pull out which tool to utilize? And there's lots of opportunities to do that. Another thing is that the spaces themselves turn out to be relevant. We can, certain spaces are really conducive to creativity, other spaces are not. So, for instance, high ceilings are better for creativity. Right? Next time you're in a hut, It's called the cathedral effect. It's research. And we put a bunch of these things, this is I think chapter 4 in the book. We put a bunch of these things. The cathedral effect. We have more creative ideas when this is why Hamilton Public Library is so cool. It's kind of an inspired space to walk into. You go, oh, look at this. Next time you're in a hut and somebody tells you to have a lot of ideas, go outside. Gem for next time you're in a hut. It turns out the color green is more conducive to creativity than the color red. It turns out an office, like a desk plant, live plants. Interestingly, live feeds on screens of live plants don't work. You need the actual plant. And they study something, like say, well, okay, let's put the plant there, and then like for some people, let's put a magazine rack there. And the magazine rack does not promote creativity, but a plant does. There's a ton of these things, a whole bunch more. Different writing tools can promote different thinking, large spaces, large writing spaces. All these different tools that you can kind of use, put together. Little toys, harnessing the power of the subconscious, all this stuff. You can read about it in the book. I can kind of imagine it like this. So if you're an idea gardener, where do you get the most bang for your buck? Well, the first is that if you can make your team believe that they are creative, that's the biggest one. That's the biggest barrier. The next, those foundations, the 4 kind of guidelines, those things will create a really safe space. You'll get more mileage if you've got some tools and you know which ones to use at the right time, and the space will make a difference. It'll make a difference for everybody, whether or not you know the other stuff. But if we put them all together, you can imagine sort of like a stackable ladder that you want to climb up as high as you can. So that's kind of the overview of the book. The last chapter in the book is about moving ideas forward. What do you do with all these ideas once you have them? And that's a lot about kind of bringing back in the critical process to say, okay, how do we filter these? The worst thing that we can do is to say, let's have somebody take notes on this. We'll have our note taker, put them in a Word file, and we'll send them out to everybody after the meeting, which will be read by precisely nobody ever. It's just people are too busy. What you need to do is bring in that creative process, kind of let the good ideas bubble to the top, define some actionables quickly. It's like, what's standing out here as the next option? If you take nothing else from our little time today, I hope this has been useful. But number 1, start believing you're creative. Let's have every hand go up when somebody says, hey, are you creative? Yes, you are. You've proven it to yourself many times over today, or at least you've proven it to me. You may not change your story yet, but I believe you're creative. Thing number 2 is focus on getting the right conditions for creativity. Rather than kind of forcing innovation on people, ask yourself, who am I being, and what kind of conditions am I creating so that everybody else feels free to have a lot of ideas, to not be judged, to be a little bit goofy, at least at times in the process, and defining those times a little bit more. And the last one is practice. Right? Creativity, against what most people believe, is a skill. In fact, books like the Talent Code say, in fact, there are no innate talents, or if they are, then they don't really matter. What matters is how much you work at these things, and we can work at it, and we can get better in this effort we're putting in. That's what I've got for you today. Thank you so much for being here.